There is still one area that is going to be stuck in stage one in Ontario for at least another week because of an outbreak among migrant workers. Starting tomorrow, Windsor, Ontario will be the last city in the country still in phase one of reopening. Business owners in the extreme southwest of the province say they're terrified they may not make it for much longer.
It's truly embarrassing to think that Windsor is the only city in Canada that's not moving forward. Implement 6 feet distancing, we'll take it. Masks, we'll take it. But to stay closed, we're not going to take that. Absolutely not.
The decisions I now have to make affect the careers and livelihood and path of 60 other people. It weighs heavy.
With me now is the Mayor of Windsor, Ontario, Drew Dilkens. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
When you hear those business owners, what goes through your mind?
Well, I feel for them entirely. I get the pain. For 100 days plus, they have followed all the rules. They have done everything that's been asked of them. And now we're at a point where, because we're in a part of a region, even though the situation is isolated to a population about 50 kilometers away from us, the entire region is being held back. And the difficult part, I think, for the business owners here is not just being held back, but they want to know what the plan is moving forward. How are we going to address the outbreak that we're seeing amongst the migrant worker population to make sure that we can deal with those sick people and help the entire region move forward?
So do you get it? Do you understand then why the Premier said that Windsor-Essex should remain in phase one?
Yeah, I understand how he made his decision. I understand how the information got flowed up and what the Premier is looking at. The difficult part here is that there has to be a plan to address the testing amongst the migrant worker population, which doesn't exist today. There is no plan. And so the Premier is on TV begging the farm owners and the operators to please bring your workers to the assessment center to be tested. Those farm owners and operators are largely ignoring that. And there are 8,000 workers here, the 750 or almost 1,000 now that have been tested. Those tests are showing that the infection rate is just above 10%, which is about 3 times higher than the general population who's being tested. So there is reason to be concerned with the outbreak amongst that population, many of whom live in bunkhouses, live in very tight living quarters, easy places to transmit a virus like COVID-19. But what is the plan to make sure that those workers who work on those farms go through a process to get tested, to prove that they're safe before they handle Canada's food supply, recognizing that the cucumbers they're picking today are in Costco's shelves tomorrow, and make sure that there is a plan in place to help the entire region move forward. If we put our head in the sand and we don't come up with a plan, I fear we're going to be in the same place having the same conversation a week from now.
So have you reached out to any of those farmers? What's your message to them?
Yeah, my message is bring the workers in to get tested. The assessment center has been set up. The city of Windsor has set up an isolation and recovery center to help the workers who are identified as COVID positive, to help them isolate and get well. But we need the farm workers to communicate, or the farm owners rather, to communicate with their workers that they need to get tested. And I recognize fully that we cannot hold someone down and put a swab up their nose to give them a COVID test. But much like we're doing in the long-term care system, where we're saying you can go visit someone in long-term care now, but you must prove that you've had a negative COVID test in the last 14 days for that to happen. We could replicate that model on the farm, saying you can only work on a farm if you prove that you're COVID negative. And then the workers have a choice whether they want to work and get the test or whether they want to be off work and not get paid. At the end of the day, they're touching Canada's food supply. They are creating an issue in our region, which is holding the entire region back, which is completely unfair. And I don't see the plan that's been put in place yet to help deal with this very, very dire situation.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, it's also a double whammy for you right now because the U.S.-Canada border remains closed. Do you expect that it will remain closed beyond the end of July? What would you like to see happen?
Yeah, it's hard to predict. I didn't think that we would get another month after the June 21st deadline. So here we are a month on. I see wide progress being made across the river in the city of Detroit and the state of Michigan. But there are obviously other issues that the Prime Minister has to consider nationwide at different border crossings and when the impact is. I know there is a bit of a mixed message when it comes to the understanding that one would be able to fly over to the United States without an issue, but you can't cross the land border in the same way. And so that is a bit of a difficult, thorny issue that I think the federal government will have to work out. But certainly I think, a reasonable plan to open the border after July 21st would make a lot of sense from folks who live here.
Mayor Dilkens, thanks so much. Appreciate your time with us.